Yeah.
It's true though, right? Like, it's just, he sees him, and he was this symbol that he didn't see, right? He was just a voice. And then when he saw him, and I think that sums up a lot of this world, man. There are these leaders who have this power, but then you see them, and they're not that powerful. It hit me hard hearing him say that, just Pat saying that to the guy. And because when he feels that, it's interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the steely demeanor has been sort of transferred from Darcy to Pat, because Pat has gone through total hell that night. I'm just amazed that he's able to walk around without his arm basically falling off, even with the duct tape on it. But, I'll suspend my disbelief. But yeah, it's like Pat is just totally like, his voice is like ice. It's like, because he's wearing that camo, he's got I like the ellipsis with the Sharpie drawings on the faces. It's just like he has entered into combat, against what he wished to do. Just circumstances panned out that way, and he was forced to kind of rise to this, I don't want to call it heroic, but he just had to find a way to self-preserve. And yeah, it really is. It's a very steely moment, and the fact that Patrick Stewart can't even face the two of them is just so telling about him. It's like, oh, I'm in the light, I'm exposed, and don't look at me kind of thing, almost, because I'm this shameful old man kind of thing. Yeah, but I'm like a total savage and a total manipulator of things, and I've probably done plenty of awful things in my lifetime. So yeah,
and it's just really interesting where. So they call it, so that, I guess we never talked about that, what happens, but have you seen the movie where Pat goes in to grab a phone after they're set, then he sees that a woman's been killed and they get trapped, but he has time to call the cops. And the cops come, they have an extra $600 to pay these two twins to stab each other. They get arrested, the cops leave. But I like when they borrow money, he borrows money from Clark, who also has his dogs. They have to check their books. They try to run a tax property. And this is a guy who, he inspires leadership. When Daniel asks the Red Laces who has smoked tonight, he takes the ones who haven't. They seem very organized. It's an organized unit, and Darcy's led to that. And at the end, when the two kids are hunting down Amber and Pat, when they've gone full war, they're afraid. They're like, what is going to happen to us? Why? Don't tell Darcy. This is going to be bad. They have a fear of him. It's an interesting fear that they've built from him.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting that, that's a good point. And I like, and there's another dialogue moment where Saulnier kind of cuts off what some snarky viewers are probably thinking when those two guys are looking down in that hole, and the one guy says, "This is a trap, and then the other guy's like, "Yeah, no, shit, you want to tell Darcy?" So he sort of cuts it off at the pass. It's like he knows that these characters aren't stupid. They're acknowledging that, okay, there's something going on here. We don't know what, but we were sent in here to clean up, quote unquote, the situation. So, and we don't want that guy we're working for or scared of, or who's going to promise us something to think less of us. So yeah, or punish us. Yeah.
Hey Darcy, they're kind of, it's like we can't really get in there. Can we just, Darcy, let's do something else. Send a dog in after him.
This will all be over with soon, gentlemen.
So, Darcy, man, you're over here at your compound, you got these dogs. How about we just, they're in this little bunker down there. I know your heroin's in there, but how about we just smoke them out? Let's smoke them out. Darcy, come on, smoke them out. Get back in there, kids. Oh, Darcy, man. Darcy, come on. Come on.
I have an AARP subscription. You need to do it for me.
What I say goes. Darcy, come on. In my head, I'm thinking of Curb. I'm envisioning Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'm doing a terrible impersonation of that guy. So just know that's where my voices are coming from.
Something, Mark, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about the character of Gabe at all.
Oh yeah, Gabe. Macon Blair. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. Boom.
Yeah, and he was the star of Blue Ruin. He's fantastic in that.
Oh gosh.
Something about his character, I thought he was interesting because, the more you're talking about these younger guys who are like going in step with Darcy's demands, whether to curry favor and get rid of their red laces or whatever, but Macon Blair, Gabe plays this character who feels like one of those hanger-on guys, like he's been there forever. He's older than everybody else. And it seems like he gets some of the crap detail with things like Darcy sends him in to clean up the crime scene later in the film, while stuff is going on down in the drug dungeon. I just thought it was interesting because he seems to get like pushed around and bullied. And, at one point Darcy says, "I think they're smarter than you," and pushes him against the wall. It's just he gets shoved around a lot, and you just get this feeling that he's, for all intents and purposes, he's kind of the sort of the manager, like
that's what he is, the house manager.
Yeah, he's one under from Darcy, yet he still doesn't get much respect from his coworkers or the people in the scene. So, and even when he has the two guys stab each other, he has them give the money he gave them back, and he says something weird like, "Oh, it'll be vouchers and stuff, and we'll double it if you have to serve time," like that means anything. So I just think it's interesting, kind of like the double talk and the manipulation of people within this scene. And when there's an ethos kind of at play, and people are, I think it's interesting. Okay, here's something I find interesting is that young people are susceptible to the messaging of music and philosophies, because I feel like it can be good or it can be bad, because our critical thinking hasn't quite come into play. So we're looking to stuff to kind of make sense of our world. And when we find something that seems kind of in step with that, we kind of latch onto it and run with it for a time anyway.
When you are young, and let's say that you are underappreciated at home, or your parents are not around, or you grew up misunderstood, or you have no one to talk to, and then you meet this Darcy.
Yeah.
He doesn't look at you as a human. He looks at you as someone, as a follower. So he's going to tell you what you want to hear. You're a family. We're not a party. We're
this is a movement.
Yeah, a movement. And so I'm going to do my Sean Connery for him. And so these people start to feel like, I believe, I get these red laces, I have a father figure, tough love, I'm part of something, they accept me. And all these kids are broken. I mean, they've all been led to hate. And so you are, I'm not condoning it, but it's easy to see how kids can be wrapped up in with situations like that when you are given attention, when you feel like you're part of a group, even when you probably I don't even know if you believe in it, you just think there's a group.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I just think that's so interesting with these different kind of kids and the way that he sucked them in and the true believers. And it's all for drugs. It's all BS. But it's, I don't know, man. And I liked his character. I don't want to go to jail. He's obviously a part of it.
Yeah.
He was in over his head in this situation. I mean, he had probably never dealt with that. He didn't know that Worm was going to go crazy and stab somebody in the face. And I don't know, yeah.
Well, but something, Mark, I think what you were saying kind of about Darcy and his power, going back to Darcy for a minute, and I think something that Saulnier touches on is kind of like, well, these are kids sort of latching on to a group and, oh, hey, this sounds good to me. And then on the other side, you have the punks who are against the neo-Nazis, basically. And I think it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, which side are you kind of, which did you gravitate towards, And I think that's why people often go through, when they're younger, in their teens or early 20s, they go through a phase where it's like, oh, it's your goth phase, it's your punk phase. I still have all of my punk CDs from when I was in my early 20s. And the stuff that really left an impression on me and that I still listen to and still really take bits of philosophy and stuff from, just to kind of help grapple with the craziness of life in America. But at the same time, I think, I just think that's why at some point you're like, I got to get a job. I got to sort of, there's something that becomes less romantic, perhaps, about being in a certain scene. But again, that's contingent on your ability to kind of, I suppose, like take that step away and maybe kind of look at yourself and think for yourself. And I know that's kind of part of the punk ethos, is kind of thinking for yourself, even though a lot of the music is kind of like not didactic, I want to say, but kind of like, it's like, do this, do that, do this, do that kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's like kind of telling you how to think.
Yeah, but it's kind of helping you think. I think it's successful when it's like you take that and you do go think for yourself and you do start to think outside the box. So I think in that sense it is helpful, and God knows I get a sense of comfort still from listening to my punk albums. So yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm not going to try to hide it. I mean, I know they're not punk, but more like emo screamo. But I still love I love my Taking Back Sunday. I love my Rise Against. I love my Blink. I'll cruise around jamming out to these guys all day. I dig it. Like Rise Against, man. I love Rise Against.
Oh, and you know what? I'll admit that sometimes I'll just put this stuff on because it will like instantly transport me back to that time when I first discovered it and first started listening to it, and it still has that effect on me. And I think that's another big thing. It's like, it's like that was a good time. I can remember how I was back then, but it's like I can still feel like I've made progress with myself at the same time. So it's interesting getting older and getting more introspective about so many things. Yeah.
I used to listen to this song because I grew up kind of, I don't know, super, not blue collar, but just, so there's a song called Swing Life Away by Rise Against, where it's like, we live on front porches and swing life away, we'll get by just fine here on minimum wage. If love is labor, we'll slave to the end. We'll slave to the end. And I was kind of thinking about it, and when I was younger, I'm like, yeah, it's great, we'll get by just fine. And then I'm kind of like, well, I want more. And,
yeah.
It's interesting how you grow up and learn, man. And I think a lot, that's why a lot of these kids that you see that are part of this group, I mean, the little kids that stab themselves can't be more than, they're under 18.
I was going to probably, yeah.
So you get these impressionable minds and, when they're young, and then maybe they get smart like Mark Webber's character does, and they leave because they realize, whoa, I don't want to be part of this world anymore. So it's kind of a interesting game, I guess. A lot of young kids there.
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point about Mark Webber's character. He's kind of like the example of the one who kind of wants to get away from it because he is kind of at that precipice kind of like I don't need this. I don't need this old man telling me what to do. And I frankly think he's a bit effed up in the head, with what he's doing. So it's like I can totally get with that. It's an interesting little wrinkle there.
There's just so much about this movie. I love this movie. It's too good. It's annoying.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Every time I watch it, it's still the same 9 out of 10 movie that I saw when I first saw it in the theater. The effect, nothing diminishes about it. Each time I watch it, I'm taken on that same tense, bloody ride. Yeah.
And this movie's no mistake. I mean, so they bought all that corn to drive into.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so they did. He paid, in the commentary, he said he wished he hadn't done that. But for that shot, they bought all that corn, and to get that shot. In this movie, when you start watching it, the camera just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, like a vice. It's not an accident. You said, that score that they play, the music, when Pat finally speaks up at the end, when, like you said, when they release the pressure valve with Amber's line,
gives a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a movie that it's not good by accident. I don't think this is one of those movies that came together in the reshoots.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
And I know that Orson Welles likes to talk about happy accidents, and perhaps Saulnier found some of that in the film. But I do think he knew what he was doing. And one cool thing is, that the band was 4 men. And then he had Alia Shawkat come in and she auditioned, and he gave her the role. And it was really interesting what he said. He's like, man, I was like thinking the whole time just 4 dudes. And I think that really changed his way of writing and thinking. Because I'm telling you, this happens where you don't think outside the box. You've been raised to not. Like, there's no consequence to not doing it. So when he brought her in, she really played the instrument. Her and Anton actually could play. So the other 2 guys learned how to play, and they played at the rap party. They played a hardcore set at the rap party.
Yeah, I did see that in the featurette on the Blu-ray, yeah.
It's just so cool. Like, it's just this movie that it just came together. There wasn't much prep time, but they did it. It was controlled. Every single one of these blood gags you had to plan. You can't do that on the day. You have to have months for this.
And they are so, the gore gags are so freaking good in this. I felt like I was watching Dario Argento or Lucio Fulci film at certain points, because it was so much like that extreme Italian horror style of hacked limbs and ripped out throats, and it was glorious. Yeah.
So I don't know. This movie wasn't a mistake. I love it. I'm glad you came in to talk with me about it. And
Sure.
any final thoughts before we get out of here?